And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses. I think our conversation today has been interesting. That said, I think we've had a very Washington conversation aimed at a very Washington audience. For the vast majority of our constituents who may be watching, this hearing has reinforced some of their bad feelings, perhaps, about Congress. No one here today has told our constituents what this hearing is likely really about. The congressional leadership strategy is simple, though it is not necessarily obvious if you're not paying close attention. Shut down the appropriations process, bog down Congress, then stuff an end-of-the-year package with gifts for special interests. That's probably more of what the hearing is about today. Referring to rules and regulations as an onslaught, as many of our witnesses and colleagues on the other side of the aisle did today, is part and parcel of the rhetoric the other side deems as necessary to accomplish the broader goal of filling the omnibus appropriations bill with Christmas gifts from big businesses' wish list. They say they're worried about this onslaught will hamper job growth and lead to mass unemployment. But we've already seen today less than 0.3% of workers who've lost their jobs in mass layoffs during the early years of the Obama administration was due to government regulations or intervention. This rate is unchanged from the Bush administration, according to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. All these rules and regulations referenced today have one thing in common. They help hardworking, middle-class Americans by ensuring that workers are afforded the dignity under the law that they unquestionably deserve. There's no doubt that ensuring workers' safety, paying a living wage, strengthening the average American's voice in the workplace, and ensuring the federal government contracts with responsible employers come at a cost. We can debate that cost. I tend to think that the other side exaggerates it, and I think the data backs me up. I also tend to think that maintaining safe workplaces and protecting workers' voices are worth that cost. Earlier, I referenced big businesses' wish list. We talked about the things on their list today. Middle-class Americans aren't sitting around saying, you know, the income threshold for overtime as proposed by the Obama administration is far too high. They're not doing so because middle-class families are focused on finding affordable daycare for their children and finding good, safe public schools for those who are over that age. They're focused on other things that are important to them. One thing they're not doing is saying that Americans don't deserve a raise, as some are saying on the other side of the aisle, as they criticize the proposed overtime rule in an attempt to block it in the omnibus. The raise came as a result of the Department of Labor updating a regulation that in the past has been routinely updated by both Democratic and Republican administrations instead of an act of Congress. I want to reiterate that I've owned my own small business for 28 years. I understand the challenges small business owners face. I say this because it's often interpreted that the Chamber of Commerce and other groups speak for all businesses. This couldn't be further from the truth. Most of the things on their wish list that don't affect the majority of small businesses that operate in this country. As is often the case, we've been given a false choice. If you're for an onslaught of regulations, or what I would call strong workers' rights and sensible workers' protections, then you're against economic growth. If you're for economic growth, then you can't be for increasing worker protections under the law. Nowhere did we mention shared growth. Nowhere did we mention how workers are the only ones who haven't been paid for increased productivity over the last 30 years. So when we hold a hearing to debate big businesses' Christmas list for the omnibus, we need to make sure we are being very clear exactly what this Christmas wish list is. Before I came to Congress, people around here used to refer to special interest projects requested by lawmakers as earmarks. These limitations or riders big business has requested are the 114th Congress's earmarks. So as we sit here and debate the Chamber's wish list, let's call it what it is, a list of earmarks, and let's talk about who gets what. In the old days, an earmark might be used to pay for a handicapped access ramp at a local library in a member's district. Today's earmarks go to constituencies with far more resources than your local library. As we continue to debate big businesses list, I ask all members of Congress to have their constituents check it twice. Surely we can come together to advance policies that can benefit the American people in a manner other than asking the middle-class Americans to stand outside in the rain and wait for their fair share to trickle down as they've been doing far too long. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.